The Overstood Human Podcast, unfiltered dialogue, real solutions, no labels. The Overstood Human Podcast exists to inspire people to live with strength, freedom, and a purpose in a world full of noise and division. We champion a life anchored in true health, strong family, personal sovereignty, and self-discovery, inspiring our listeners to thrive beyond the confines of the design system. Our mission is to inspire you to break free from mediocrity, think independently, and live a life of meaning, resilience, and impact. Hello, I am Frank Tortorici.
And my name is Sarah Green, and this is the Overstood Human Podcast.
The Overstood Human Podcast. Here we are again, another episode in the bucket. How are you, Sarah?
I'm doing good. Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. The world is it's crazy right now. But I feel like every time you and I talk, I feel like that's always in our vocabulary.
it keeps spinning. Well, I don't even know if that's another topic, but yeah. The chaos continues.
I think we're the ones spinning, not the earth. But anyway.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we hope everybody's doing good, enjoying the podcast, and staying sane in this crazy world and rooted in your faith. I think we should start there. So we're going to cover a couple of different topics here today. There's been, again, I always say the Matrix always is the gift that keeps on giving. When you're aware of all this stuff, it's just that every day there's something that makes you go, my God, like what is going on? But I think it's important for us to start first and foremost with this famous blogger, Jill Smokler. She was known as the Scary Mommy blogger. And I guess I should, start by saying we at the Overstood Human Podcast offer our condolences that she left children behind, husband. She obviously, I guess, was a daughter to, I don't know if her parents are still alive, but obviously people are affected by this. And we just want to touch on this from a perspective of trying to connect dots and just getting people to critically think. Obviously, don't know the woman, don't know anything about her. But the little bit that I was able to dig up online, I think is enough material for us to just have a discussion. And again, there's no intention here of offending the family, disrespecting them. They're grieving. They lost somebody. There's children that have no mother right now. So, we're obviously aware of that and respectful of that. So in saying that, she was diagnosed in March of 2024 with brain cancer. And I know a lot of shit. She had a big following. And Sarah, you knew of her prior to this. I just found out about her when this hit.
Yeah, I mean, I had read things that maybe it was her story or people commenting, or so I didn't know her prior to her diagnosis, but I would get snippets of things. And it's just it's another sad case of someone who I believe, and I think you believe, succumbed to this gene therapy injection. Truly.
Yep. Yeah. Look, no, you said something before off air. She was known as like a crunchy kind of a blogger type thing. She was into like a lot of things holistic.
I think she was a little more of that, and she had over 1 million followers, so she had a large group behind her.
She had influence for sure.
Very much so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting too, because so many people during the pandemic, people who were health conscious, it's amazing how many people like fell in line to the narrative and buckled in fear and gave in, right? I mean, I can't mention names obviously, but I know a lot of people who I looked up to who are like really into their body as their temple, and during that they fell hook, line, and sinker for everything. It's wild. So it sounds like maybe she was one of them. But I pulled up I did some digging when we discussed that we were going to touch this topic, and there's I have one here from January 28th of 2021, Scary Mommy. And she writes, "These are lies being spread at the potential cost of human lives, and nothing about that is okay. Here's a good example. And the title of the article is "Some Anti-Vaxxers Are Lying About Having Adverse Reactions to the COVID Vaccine." So, she was putting stuff out like that. And then even on Google, like when I did some digging, there's various from the scary mommy that comes up. One is this is March 12th, 2021, as a single mom getting my COVID vaccine gave me so, and then it says ... If you're afraid of the vaccine but not COVID-19, we need to talk. This was January 6th, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So she was obviously pushing the agenda, right? And I don't know, who knows how many she received,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
But one thing that we do know is, and this is public information, that she did fly to Germany, and she was in an experimental vaccine clinical trial for the mRNA vaccine to treat the brain cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So we do know that as well. So not only was she pumping mRNA for the COVID, but then she was in an experimental trial to treat the cancer with the mRNA technology as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I mean, this is all speculation, right? I mean, but is it that this is the crazy part, and this is what, right? It's man, this stuff gets executed, right? And then these turn of events happen, and it's like, to all the people, all the naysayers, you could never. Unfortunately, this is like happening right before their very eyes, and you still can't convince them because, well, anyone can get a brain tumor, right? That would be their rebuttal, right? I mean,
Right.
what, you know?
Right.
So, but how do we deny um, the sequence of events where we're at this point and what's transpired over these last 6 years, 6.5 years? Like, how as a society do we deny, athletes dropping, young actors? Like, we've heard about this, and I mean, we've heard about this so much, just with headline news, right? Like, how many times have you seen the term "died suddenly" in the last 6 years? I mean, it's rampant. It's really a rampant thing.
Yeah, we created or invented the SADS syndrome, sudden adult death syndrome,
Yeah,
as there was no such thing. And I, you look at what you're doing to society, and if you start changing things, it takes one or two generations to be convinced that like that's a normal thing, right? It kind of seems
yeah.
with like myocarditis and pericarditis. It's
Hmm.
something that cardiologists maybe they saw once or twice in their entire career. Very, very, very rare. And now it's like so prevalent, from the vaccine and even the virus itself, but much more so the vaccine shedding, I think, has something to do with it too. But once you start making it a normal thing, you educate and teach the next class of residents and soon to be physicians that it's a very common thing like the common cold, and they're convinced now that this is not like an abnormality and we need to go investigate what it's linked to. It doesn't take
Hmm.
but a couple of generations to reinvent history, recreate history into something that's completely a lie and false. And so, man, we've seen this over and over and over again, and it's it's really sad. I mean, I know a lot of patients. I have a lot of patients that took the shot once or twice. I even had one that wanted to do a spike protein detox. She had taken 7 of the shots. And
Oof.
thank God she finally came to a realization like, wow, this is actually really bad for me. But to get to the point where you're still promoting and pushing it this far down the line, man, stupidity is is strong.
Let me ask you this, like, because you deal with this on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
What would you say the percentages of people that are coming to you with a cancer diagnosis in the last 6 years that have not been COVID vaxxed
Um, I would
compared
say
to those that
probably
have?
70%. It's a question I ask, like I ask your date of birth.
Yeah,
It has to be, do you have allergies? Have you had the COVID shot? I would say probably 70% of my patients have taken the COVID vaccine who have a diagnosis of cancer. I tended to see, like, I'll look at trends, and although they all are Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson and Johnson were all available in the US. I have
Hmm.
a lot that got the Johnson and Johnson, and I think a lot of people thought that that was the best of all of them, considering the options that they had because they were being forced to take it.
Why was that again at the time? I remember that too, but why was the Johnson Johnson like the pick at the time?
Because they claimed it wasn't an mRNA vaccine
Oh,
and it
right,
was one and done, right? So
right,
Moderna and
right.
Pfizer, like to actually be fully vaccinated, which is mandatory, you had to do one shot and then like 3 weeks later you had to repeat that, and it was an
Hmm.
mRNA, a new technology. The Johnson Johnson they claimed was not. It has the same detrimental effects, and if anyone thinks that like Johnson and Johnson is a good company you need to trust, like, man, get your head in the sand, right? These people are transhumanism now. It's transhumanism. They're changing their genetic makeup. They're changing the DNA that God gave you. We've got SV40 in there. We've got things that deplete the P53 gene, which is a gene that we all have that God gave us, that is kind of our military, right? Like it's looking around for cells that are abnormal and knocking those out because they don't fit. That's
Hmm.
completely obliterated in this vaccine, not to mention all of the DNA that they're finding, aborted fetal cells, changes in DNA. Um, there is nothing actually good about these shots, and more young people like herself are being diagnosed with cancer. Like it's insane. I mean,
You know, what's a
it's
fascinating thought when you say that, not to cut you off, but
sure.
what's fascinating is that you think of like organizations like the FDA and the CDC, and majority people in our society think that those organizations are there to protect, right, and make sure that we're safe and getting quality treatment. And it's like the fact that there was a new technology rolled out during COVID, in that sense, in the form of vaccines, mRNA. Why do you, if they really care, why, and I may be naive and stupid and not even know that this took place, but you're a medical professional, you're licensed. So were you ever contacted by any of the organizations like, hey, give us your data, in the sense of like what I just asked you, like how many people that have, ailments, heart cancer, blood cancers, whatever, brain tumors, that have had the vaccine versus that have not? Because this is all new. We don't you think they would want that data, like moving forward for the future, if they genuinely had a concern of the well-being of the public?
Well, you would think, but we've been brainwashed to trust a system, these three-letter agencies that are
Hmm.
nothing but part of the cabal,
Hmm.
to blindly trust and obey.
Yeah.
And so, God forbid you do something that's not FDA approved. And I think truly before COVID, before 2020, like I know how naive I was. I was just as stupid as everybody else in that I blindly followed, assuming or being taught or indoctrinated to believe that these three-letter agencies are actually out to protect, and they're not. They're who's behind all this stuff? You got the CIA. You got it's
Yeah.
the the pharma industry is the biggest mafia ring there is.
Hmm.
But we were led to believe and obey, and um, they don't care. Like when I when I was working the urgent care, I was working the urgent care during the beginning of the pandemic. Um, and I remember when the vaccines first rolled out, and I was like, oh, heck no, I'm not taking that. I'm not taking your flu shot either. And I was the only one at the clinic as a provider that asked questions when random people were coming in, and it became very, very prevalent. As soon as we allowed those vaccines to be available to the public, man, we spiked in the number of patients we were seeing, and they would come in with the weirdest symptoms. And
Hmm.
I would ask every time, like, have you gotten the COVID vaccine? And they were like, yeah, 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, dude, this is from the COVID vaccine. And so I started writing a list, and I would put symptoms and then how recent the shots were.
Hmm.
And I would talk to my colleagues, my supervising physician, who would always like squash it because, oh no, that was 2 weeks ago. Like, no, it's definitely not related. What? And the amount of time and energy it would take to report one of these in the VAERS database, not only was it super time consuming, but you had to know the lot number too. So you
Hmm.
couldn't actually report it in the database without the lot number. And they made it as difficult as possible. And not only did they make it as difficult as possible, but they totally discriminated against you to do it. And so it was this thing, like it was a stigma. And
Mm.
do no harm was just completely thrown out the window. Like if I'm going to do that for anything. Like if I recommend something and I go, oh shoot, like this is actually not what it is. Why wouldn't we want as providers, the general public, to be aware that this is not what we think it is? And they made it nearly impossible to even document it. So if we look at the VAERS database, I mean, I've seen interviews of patients who have gotten injuries from vaccines. And there was that one little girl, she was like 11 or 12, I can't remember, who she ended up getting paralyzed from, she
Mm-hmm.
was, her parents put her in the clinical trial, like, hello, wake up. But they did. And I'm sure you've heard her story. And in the VAERS database, her symptoms from the shot was abdominal pain. Like that's what they listed it under. She's paralyzed. Like
Mm.
paralysis. This girl will never live a normal life. And they listed it under. So if I were just a random person and I'm looking under the VAERS database and I'm looking at the side effects, I'm like abdominal pain. Okay, like that's no big deal. If I start seeing paralyzed death, autoimmune cancer, paralyzed, I'd be like, what in the heck? So they would, even when they were reporting these, they were underreporting, and then they were giving like symptoms or side effects that were not even similar to what was truly going on.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Peter McCullough talked about this too in one of his podcasts. He was saying, like, during the clinical trials, um, they they would, if someone had like a severe symptom, a severe reaction, they would like not even, they would just take them out of the clinical trial instead of reporting it. Like they would just, knock them off.
Mm.
So only those that, like, they just reported anyone who like, it was, they were following the group, the control group. And if
Mm-hmm.
anyone had anything negative, they just took them out of the science, the studies. I mean, it's just over
Mm.
and over and over again. And if you look at the animals that they tested on, and they had all of them died, like there's a problem. There's a huge problem. And
Mm.
now we're seeing the aftermath. And I truly think that those that died within a week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months, a year, whatever, their voices are no longer able to be heard. And so you
Mm.
and I and other people need to be their voices.
Yeah.
This young mom who promoted it, and I don't ever wish harm on anybody, but I shouldn't say but, because then it discredits that. However,
Yeah.
um, you can't fix stupid. And
Yeah.
here she is, and she's believing in the system still, and she's, and it it
I
happened.
just wonder, like, people at that level, like, doing what she was doing because she had a lot of following.
Mhm.
Did they genuinely believe in it, or is money truly the root of all evil? Like, do people just get like checks thrown their way and they just jump on board at that level?
I mean, I think there's probably money involved, and then people truly are just so
Yeah.
incredibly brainwashed. They
Yeah.
really are. I mean, you and I know this. If I go on my social media and I start liking things that talk about vaccine injuries and liking things that tell the truth, I truly think the truth about these shots and all vaccines in general, really, then my feed is going to continue to be things that are similar to my beliefs.
Mhm.
If I were pro vaccine and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I only caught COVID 8 times since getting all my shots. And man, I would have died if I didn't do it. And I start liking, because everybody got COVID, and the ones that got the vaccine they're sicker and they're chronically ill. But if I was following those reels, those
Yeah. Yeah.
shows, then it would feed me
Played
more
safe.
information to believe that what I'm thinking is true.
Mhm.
And so AI and all this stuff is just, it's just going to brainwash whatever avenue you pick. You think Trump's good, you think Trump's bad. You're going to get all the videos that Trump's good, you get all the videos that
Mhm.
Trump's bad. Like it feeds into your belief. And
Yeah.
so she probably didn't see a whole lot. And I mean, I don't know, but it's sad, and we're going to see a massive influx. There were some people that were talking, they were like, post 5 years after that vaccine, we're going to just start seeing a huge increase in deaths and destruction, and it's happening right in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
Across
Yeah.
the across the globe.
Yeah, and it's happening with so many age demographics too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know of two females. One is my aunt, believe it or not. She's what, 70, late 70s, mid to late 70s. And then my neighbor, actually, she's about 43. They both have a blood cancer right now, and both like completely on the bandwagon. Then I know of a male who's my age, we're just like a month apart. Um, he got the first two and then woke up. But he's been dealing with some issues, and he just went to a doctor, and they're finding like high amounts of protein in his blood. Specifically, he said is it IgA?
I'd have to look at his stuff, but yeah.
Um,
What are
yeah,
they? What's his diagnosis with the high protein is? What they
they
say?
they just said that they see high protein, and that this specific test takes several weeks to get the results back. So now he's waiting on that. He's waiting on that. But I'm finding it interesting. There's a lot of blood stuff I'm hearing lately.
Sure,
You know.
sure. A lot of blood stuff. I mean, this vaccine is changing. It's literally changing your DNA, and you've got cells that are made in the marrow and the in the blood, and it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of blood cancers, and a lot of things. We have to look at our environment as well. Like it's the perfect storm, and they knew this. What did they do during the pandemic? They like locked everybody in their houses, and then they just
Mm-hmm.
built all these 5G towers everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, we're all locked in these 5G towers, which are huge. We're being microwaved,
Man.
basically. And then you've got these vaccines in you that have all of these metals and all kinds of crap. And so you've got these frequencies that are like buzzing in your body. And then we've got our food that's completely covered in glyphosate, Roundup.
And now we've also have an abundance of data centers popping up everywhere,
Yes,
which is
yes,
another big
yes,
issue. Big
yes.
issue, right?
Huge, huge. I mean, we are being attacked from every single angle. And really there's no how do you get away from it? I just bought a place in like the middle of the sticks. And
Mm-hmm.
just because I bought a place in the middle of the sticks, the skies are still being sprayed. It doesn't matter where you
Mm-hmm.
go. Like, how do you actually get rid of it? How do you go from it? You can't.
You can't. And what did you say off air? We were talking about it. Just to the idea of that, we're not. This isn't. We're not here forever, right? We're not. I forgot how you said it. I don't want to
This
trash it,
yeah,
but
this is our temporary home, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
we will all, whether you're a believer or not, I don't really care. I mean, I care,
yeah.
but I don't really care because we will all bend the knee and we will all
Mm-hmm.
face the man who died on the cross for us. And what we did here, how we lived our lives, how we treated other people. I mean, ultimately it's do you believe, and that's what's going to get you there, but you're going to be held
Mm-hmm.
accountable for what you did. And when we live in this world and we think that this is it and we get focused on the things of this world, you could be gone like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so making sure that you're living a life that represents who died for us is so incredibly important. um this is just a temporary home.
Yeah.
And we have to, so like this poor woman who left behind kids and probably was um a promoter of hundreds if not thousands of people getting this kill shot, who probably also had similar or horrible side effects. Man, she's got a lot of
Yeah.
accountability there.
And I think too, what this story um, should teach people is that no matter what direction we go, whether we treat our health conventionally, holistically, integrate the two, whatever you choose when you get a diagnosis, or even how you want to live your life when it comes to, the people who opted out of the shot, people who took the shot. Um, at the end of the day, it's in his hands, right? And this woman obviously did everything by the book of conventional medicine, and she's gone, right? So it's like, when we get into these debates with people of science and trust the science, and at the end of the day, you're practicing medicine. Like, every doctor is practicing medicine. And I think it's just up to us, as when you're a patient, to know that, and stop. I just get so angry when people kind of feed into a doctor's god complex, in a sense, like they have all the answers, right? And you know doc said I got to be on this the rest of my life, or the doctor said, I've got 3 months left to live. It's like, they're human and they're practicing medicine. So the next time anybody shames somebody for not believing in conventional medicine, well, look at this story. And look, it's on both sides. There are people who go holistically and pass away. And again, to your point, we're all just passing through here.
Mhm.
This is not, none of this is forever. Like, none of this. This is all a temporary illusion that our soul gets to experience in this casing known as the human body. It's all temporary.
Mhm.
So there's no hardcore answer, I guess, is what I'm getting at, when it comes to how you want to treat your body, which it goes back to this whole, like, medical freedom. I should be able to choose what I want to put in my body, how I want to treat it. Um, you know, it infuriates me when, people are screaming my body, my choice when it comes to abortion, but not when it comes to, like, what medical treatments I can do to my
Right.
body, or as a parent, like, as I want, for a child.
Mhm.
So it's, again, this woman did everything by the book of conventional medicine, and she's gone. So um, you can't ridicule people for how they want to treat themselves and what path they want to go. But I always tell people, and you could speak to this more than anybody, but I've always said, a person who treats themselves more on a holistic path when they're dealing with some sort of a terminal illness, let's say cancer, right? I know several people who have done it holistically, or have integrated both sides, but the conventional side, maybe they dabbled with like 25% of it. They just didn't, they took a little bit of it. It's those people that post cancer are living a much higher quality lifestyle.
Mhm.
Whereas the ones that just get cut, poison, and burned, and make no changes, and just get pumped with radiation or chemo, yeah, they're in remission, but their quality of life is just not the same. I mean, that stuff causes irreversible damage to your organs, to your overall body, right? Um,
Mhm.
so everyone's in. Again, I mean, I'm just more libertarian minded, and I just feel like everybody should have that choice to make with how they want to treat their body, especially when it comes down to the next pandemic. Because as we know, I know so many people that took 8 to 10 shots and they got COVID various times and were in bed and everything. Um, I had none and was in gyms pre-COVID, and then, until they were shut down. And I think I caught a cold. A cold. I had COVID. Like, I just had the sniffles and like a mild fever for a couple days, and that was it.
Yeah.
Um, but that's the other thing too. Like, this has, you said it before. This has scarred people psychologically. Like, I know people who were so bought into the narrative, Sarah, they literally still have people when they come over their house test themselves if they have COVID or not. Till
Oh
this
boy.
day. Till this
Yeah.
day.
Well, look at all
Till
the
this
people
day.
wearing masks in the grocery stores. Like there is a small percentage of society that we will never actually get back. Uh,
No.
that
No, no,
that
no.
just they're done, and they will never ever be able to go back to the way life was pre
No.
pre pandemic. I
No.
want to touch real quick on you
Yeah.
know picking a path and deciding what way to go. I think it is so incredibly important, and it doesn't happen, but it's so incredibly important to understand informed consent and
Mm.
truly get the information that is absolutely pertinent and honest from any provider that is going to recommend or give you ideas of what you could do. But that will never happen. Like I think it's critical for a patient who has a diagnosis of cancer and their oncologist is pushing a chemotherapy agent. You need to ask, like, okay, so you want me to take this chemotherapy drug, what percentage of patients that have similar or same diagnosis as I have that go on this that actually go into remission? And what
Mm-hmm.
percentage of patients that take this end up with serious, permanent, debilitating side effects? What percentage of patients that take this that go into remission but end up with a secondary cancer because it's completely obliterated X, Y, and Z? And what percentage of patients does it, and what's the time span of this? And informed consent completely is out the door. And we're trained to trust the medical literature. And there's lawsuits going on right now discussing the corruption of medical journals, because they're all paid for by pharma.
Mm-hmm.
So you have some drug peddling provider who's going to push for X, Y, and Z drug, um, and they're going to do trials that are falsified and changed. And I mean, look at the clinical trials of COVID. Like, all those whistleblowers that came out and said the way these vaccines are being made is crazy, and what's happening is crazy, and they either die suddenly themselves, they're suicided, or they're completely silent. So anyone that actually spoke out against it, so it's it's so much manipulation and coercion. I don't read medical journals like I used to, because I don't. It's like, who paid for the outcome of that report?
And
It was.
the other thing to think of too in a situation like that, once you once you give the consent to take any kind of their drugs, whatever happens, good luck getting compensated for it. Especially, I mean,
Yeah.
of course, with vaccines, you can't. We know
No.
that. But
No.
even like any kind of a pill, anything, like if
Mhm.
you end up in court, these judges, they're all in bed. Like they're all in bed together, right? With these companies, like money talks,
Mhm.
right? And we just recently saw that too with the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court has 9 judges, 6 conservative, 3 left, and 7-2 passed that there's no accountability to Bayer with glyphosate, Roundup, with any types of lawsuits. You can't sue them anymore. That's it. And doesn't that sound familiar?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Here
Yeah.
we go. Literally 40 years later, right? 1986 was the vaccine. And now 40 years later, another conglomerate corporate giant gets a pass.
Yeah.
Gets a
Yeah.
pass. And how many people have come forward with lymphoma and cancer
Yeah.
being exposed to that? How many?
Oh, yeah. Well, the number is, it just keeps going. And
Staggering.
it's funny because, like, we were trained, someone with an education, they go to Harvard or Stanford or Yale or like Princeton or like all these super, super elite colleges. Now I look at it like, who was funding that? Who was funding that? And how
Mm-hmm.
many how many letters behind your name? I can't tell you how many times people will comment on my posts and say, "What kind of medical education do you have? Like, what credentials do you have? You can't be speaking that way. Like, you're not an MD. You're not a whatever." And I'm looking at them going, "Do you think that that's what it takes for someone to be able to just do some critical thinking? Like, actually, I'm gonna trust someone who digs deep and doesn't have those credentials, because when you
Mm-hmm.
have those credentials, you are indoctrinated. And the higher the elite of the classes that you went to, the higher your whatever, the more brainwashing that took place. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's this mindset. Like, it's truly like MK Ultra. It really is. It's this brainwashing manipulation mindset. I would trust some crunchy mom who has looked and researched and seen and spoken with a bunch of people and has done their own research, then I would trust someone who's newly out of medical school that thinks that they know everything, and they're like, well, look at all the initials behind my name. No, all they did to you was teach you how to be a drug dealer. Like, that's what you
Yeah.
are. And any doctor that is pushing a drug, instead of saying, what drugs are you on? And let's figure out what's going on, what's going on, underlying problems. What is your metabolic dysfunction? What's your insulin resistance? What's your homocysteine? What's your C-reactive protein? What's going on at a cellular level? And let's fix those things so we can get you off these drugs. Like, that's what I want. Yeah. I don't want someone to say, oh, your blood pressure is 140/80. Here's a drug. Oh, but now you've got swelling in your legs. So here's a drug. Oh, now you've got and you just keep pushing drugs. They're just.
Hey guys, this is Frank.
My name is Sarah, and please join us next week for part 2.
Thank you for watching the Overstood Human Podcast. Be sure to join in next week. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Always consult with your physician before starting any exercise program or doing anything contained in this podcast.